Welcome back to Checkpoint XP on campus. I'm your host, Erica Sadora, and today we have some monumental esports news. We are starting off with eFuse's pipeline ranking system. eFuse is presenting us a ranking system that allows collegiate players to get scouted a lot better and a lot faster. And today I have Dominic Shotson to tell us more about the subject. Dominic, what can you tell us about this fantastic new ranking system?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of info already out there about pipeline, but I reached out to Matthew, the CEO from eFuse, and got some other answers about it that I can give you some insights about. But the real quick lowdown about pipeline, it's kind of like a top 100 of college eligible players, similar to something that ESPN already does, like and other sports outlets do with incoming athletes to collegiate programs like football and basketball, right? Like they'll rank the top 100 players coming into school. Pipeline is kind of like in that same vein, the same idea, like of letting programs know about potential esports athletes that they could recruit to their programs, so that it streamlines the process for some esports programs so that they can discover talent from around the world and simplify the process for them.
That's great. So I'm going to ask the question that everyone in their seat is thinking of right now. How are they going to make this possible? How are they going to start recruiting players? Is there some sort of logistic system they're depending on, or is it more word of mouth?
So one of the things that eFuse is doing with Pipeline to try to make it really open to players is that it's actually free for players to sign up and create a profile on Pipeline. They'll be able to go in there, put their info in, and create like a profile for themselves that makes them very interesting to potential programs. Obviously, the more interesting you make your profile and the better depth you put into it, the better you're going to get out of it. But it keeping it like open and free to players, that's how it's going to try to bring as many players in as possible. It's like, hey, are you serious about this? Well, we're going to give you the opportunity. Programs will look at this because we're providing the information for them, right? That's what eFuse is saying. So they're bringing players in for free. That's basically their main plan, to get as many players there as possible.
Right. And how are they going to bring player statistics into it? Are they going to do fact checks on these players, or is it solely going to be asking the coaches, asking individual players, the truth system?
So as far as what Matthew told me via email about how they'll be doing these rankings, the goal is to be as objective as possible. They want to take subjectivity out of it, which is something that happens a lot in professional sports, right? When they're looking at people, you kind of do a subjective thing of like, well, this guy's got it, this guy doesn't, type, you know, scouting, which, doesn't really, isn't quantitative. So if you use the approach they're taking is they want to be very quantitative and objective and just look at recent performance and historical performance whenever they're ranking players. Now it does, there are games where subjective type of interpretation of how a player plays, like team positioning and other things, aren't really quantitative stats. And, maybe that's something that they can try to figure out in the future. Maybe games can try to track that for them. That is maybe a hole in the way that they're going to rank. But ultimately, they're trying to just look for stats and how you're actually performing. Like, so in a game like Valorant, KD is going to be king probably, right? So that's the main way they're looking at it.
Well, you've heard it here. Like, eFuse, if you're listening on this, we're giving you like tips and tricks on how to make the system work better. I totally agree, though. I feel like your KDA and your technical skill is only half of the battle. Definitely comms and your team positioning and your team synergy is a big part of it. So let's ask the big question here. What can this do for the future of esports?
So obviously, the way that they're approaching this, it's going to make collegiate esports a lot more accessible for a lot of programs and a lot of players. A small program out in like Indiana or maybe North Dakota or something like that, that maybe they're into esports, but they don't really, have like that pipeline maybe directly in state or something like that. This gives them a chance to look out at players and try to, if they have funding to bring a player in, recruit them to their program as maybe they're build around player. This is the type of thing that changes the way collegiate esports will be approached. And ultimately, if there is a direct pipeline from high school to college, that always could lead to a pipeline from college to the path to professional esports. We've talked about plenty. Norris Howard always talks about that maybe is something that you could see coming out of this. Time will have to tell, obviously, but that's what we would hope to see, right? Collegiate esports becoming the pipeline for professional esports would be great.
Well, thank you, Dom, for blessing us with this monumental piece of information. And if you're looking forward to more esports related news, check back with us on our Twitter and YouTube at Checkpoint XP on campus. Next up on our monumental esports stories, we have St. Clair College opening up a public esports facility. This is a big break for our esports community as it's allowing esports players from around the world of all ages, from college to high school to even middle school, to segue their way into esports. And I have Garrett O'Toole here to tell us more about the subject. Garrett, what can you tell us about St. Clair opening up this new public esports facility?
Right. So St. Clair College recently got $23 million to expand on their campus. They're going to use about 33% of that new space to be solely used for esports, right? And this is going to be a big deal because I talked to the actual esports director, Sean Byrne, about what this means for their program. And what they really wanted to emphasize is how it's going to affect the local pipeline. They want to grow local talent. They want to be the hub of esports in their community. And I'm all for it. I'm ready to grow the local talent in community in these small colleges.
That's definitely the best thing I've heard all day. What are some significant changes or significant things in this esports facility that are making it different from regular LAN? How tournaments use LAN facilities? How is this different?
Right. So originally, the college that has about 40 varsity esports players that were sharing about 12 stations, now that's going to grow up to 64 stations, with 12 of them solely being directed totally to varsity, right? And then what it's going to make it so different is, we've had college facilities before. This is one of the few that's open to the entire public. And he said they did that because there were elementary schools and high schools reaching out to the college, wondering how to get involved in esports. And they wanted to provide that opportunity where a lot of those schools wouldn't have the funding. Now they can drop down to the local St. Clair College. They can get their students in the system. They can start training them. And, maybe they'll figure out where they fit within the esports ecosystem, at age 12 instead of age 21, where people are finally starting to get into esports. And now they have the opportunity to host events for pro events, for community events, high school, college, because there's a main stage, there's plenty of room. It's actually 15 to 16,000 square feet. So that's a massive amount of area to use for whatever sort of event they want to run.
Right. I think this is a huge upgrade to any facility. I don't even believe that regular LCS tournaments have this big of a facility to allow players just do their thing. I think not only bringing in like middle school players to college players is creating a huge environment and a huge support system for these players is great. But I mean, how are they funding this? Is this public? And what is like the return for it if we're talking technical jargon?
Right. So this was originally a $23 million expansion done by the college itself. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say $23 million for an esports facility. That's not quite how it's going to go down, right? So the original $23 million is for a 50,000 square feet expansion of the college. Only 15 to 16,000 feet. So about like 33% of that is going to be used for the esports division. And what they really see the return on investment is, once again, the pipeline, right? Getting new talent focused and ready to go to college and be already involved in esports, but also just providing new resources for students that are there that'll have their resume padded and ready to go out of college, right? So they're going to be able to have broadcast experience. They're going to be able to have coaching experience. They're going to be able to manage events, right? Because there's going to be community, high school, college events going through here. And there's going to be students that are in charge of adminning or making sure that the run of schedule is on pace and ready to go. And that's going to be a huge benefit to esports at large, right? Having students that are coming out of their local college and having big time experience with running events can only mean good things for esports in the end. And I hope that more colleges adopt what St. Clair is doing in Windsor, Canada.
You are hyping this up. It's making me so excited that I just want to visit it myself and just like be immersed in the greatness of what St. Clair is doing. Not only that, but I can't imagine how excited the students are. I mean, this is a really big deal. Usually, professional players are way out of their college age and, they're doing the professional thing. And I think it's such an amazing thing to highlight young players at their prime to be able to really dip their toes into what the esports community is like and what the industry has for them. And what can colleges do and what can they improve after St. Clair has made this monumental break?
Well, St. Clair obviously is going to be one of the first in the forefront, right? They're going to be learning what doesn't and what does work. So colleges, they just need to pay close attention, but they're going to be falling behind while this is happening, because this is one thing that the esports director, Sean Byrne, really put into me is he said, this facility has helped us so much with our recruiting class alone. He says 2021 has their best recruiting class. And that, if I'm any esports organization, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, if I want to get the best students, if I want to have the best players and be ready to compete on the national stage or even the worldwide stage of collegiate esports, I need to have a facility like this, because there's going to be colleges like St. Clair that are going to scoop them all up. So, you have to keep a close eye and you have to be ready to strike, but you got to make sure that you aren't falling behind. That's why I believe this investment is worth it at the end of the day.
Actually, I've said it again. I'll say it again. The greatest news I've heard today. I'm so excited for this. And if you're looking for more esports related news and more updates on St. Clair College's newest esports facility, check back with us on YouTube and Twitter at Checkpoint XP on campus. And I'll see you next week.